When you were going through this journey and again, crying out to God, and I love that because I feel like this is like a modern day lament, a modern day psalm, because you're not afraid to say, yeah, sometimes I cried out to God and I was just like, why? But there was so much hope in your story. Why were you holding on to hope, LYSA?
I remember many, many nights falling asleep and my heart breaking because I felt so utterly hopeless. And I remember thinking, what makes me feel like, why me, why this, why now, God? What makes me feel that way is when God's promises are doubtful. Like God's promises seem to apply to everyone else's circumstances, but they start to feel doubtful for me when the hurt is lasting a little too long and the healing feels a little too far away. And I remember I kept telling my counselor, I want to get over this, I want to get over this. And one day my counselor said something so profound. He's like, LYSA, you don't get over circumstances like this. You have to learn to walk through them. And so that was complicated for me. But when God's promises seemed doubtful, when his lack of intervention hurtful, and his timing very questionable, of course, we'll start to wonder, where are you, God? And how could you let this hurt upon hurt upon hurt, I mean, waves of new hard circumstances into one person's life? It seems unfair, it seems uncaring, and it will make you question everything. But one of my favorite passages in the Bible is Mark 14, starting in verse 32, when Jesus himself was in the Garden of Gethsemane. And we know Jesus' perfect divinity, fully God, but also complete humanity, not sinful, but he was completely sinless, but he felt what it felt like to be human. And I was reading Jesus' experience in the Garden of Gethsemane, I was so struck by him using the same words that I use when I'm starting to slip and feel like I don't think God really has this under control, and I don't know that God can ever bring good from this. But Jesus used words like, God, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me. And I have said that same thing. Jesus says, I am overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. I think this might kill me. I'm hurting so bad, I think I'm going to die. And furthermore, God, you are so powerful. Everything is possible for you. You could change this. So change it. And I guess as I was reading those words, I was so struck by the fact that Jesus really, really knew. He knew what it felt like to experience the depth of human sorrow that can make you cry out to God, acknowledging, God, if you really are as powerful as you say you are, and you're choosing not to change this, it is breaking something deeper in me than just my emotions. And so I found so much encouragement for those words, but Jesus doesn't end there. He makes a turn with these 9 earth-shaking, hell-shattering, demon-quaking words. Yet not what I will, but what you will. And so I had to learn, part of the reason I was so heartbroken and not understanding God is because I had to learn, when I prayed, to stop making so many suggestions to God and trying to hold God accountable to my suggestions. I had to have marked moments in my journey where I released all of that, and I literally had to trade my will for thy will, because I was confident he will. God will do something with this. So I have to release it. And that was hard. It was opposite of my personality. And it didn't feel like in the moment it even made a difference. But I will say 3 years down the road now from the time I discovered what was happening and my life turned upside down, January or February of 2016 to now, as the story unfolded, God never, ever, ever listened to one of my suggestions. Not one of my suggestions came to be. And yet here I stand 3 years later, and I can see it was the best thing I ever did to trade my will, just to hand it over and stop making so many suggestions to God and just receive whatever it is that God had for me that day. Just like I said before, God doesn't want to be explained away. He wants to be invited in. And so I don't want you to picture like it was this big theological dynamic experience. It was simple. It was sitting on my bed, weeping, not wanting this to be my life story, and simply saying, it comes down to this, God. I love you, and you love me, and that's all I know, and that's all I have.